Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me is my good friend and frenemy, Oh My Feelings. But he is still away on personal business, so I have the lovely Horror Amarada, our special guest. How are you
Woohoo.
this
I'm
fine
doing
afternoon slash whatever?
whatever time it is.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the world. Who cares? What is the Real McCoy? You might ask. The Real McCoy podcast is your weekly movie podcast where I and All My Feelings ask you to go and watch a movie. You watch it, come back to us, we break it down, geek it, then nerd on it, and break it for you, and just enjoy the movie making business. And I'll tell you what. This week I actually miss All My Feelings not because not because he's not here to share this glorious movie with me. It's the fact that usually the whole a lot of the load on the research on where to get things, where to see things is on his side, and I usually have a little bit of notes running around, and just to help things out. Boy, his job is really tough. Is really tough, and he's really, really good at it. But I was able to find a copy of literally of a movie that was made that is behind the scenes. So a lot of the stuff that we have is from there. The
Nice.
movie we're talking about is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, written by Douglas Adams. Amrata, you've read all 5 of the trilogy.
I have indeed.
I've
A couple
read it.
times.
I've read it a long, long time ago, and I've never progressed past the first book because
I can
it
understand that.
wasn't my favorite. I was big in fantasy and sci-fi, so I believe you are as well.
hmm
But to me, the sort of comedy sci-fi was never. It didn't take for me. It's not a bad. I didn't feel like it was a bad book, but I
hmm
just wasn't. It didn't grab me like hard.
Yeah.
So my experience with the movie coming in was a little bit on and off. I think I've seen it before this week. I think I've seen it a couple of times. How many times have you seen it before this week?
Probably 10, 20 times. Maybe.
Wow.
Okay, so I like this book not necessarily for the sci-fi vibes, but the way it humorizes philosophy
Mm.
is actually my favorite part of it. Anytime a book or a movie can take deep philosophical concepts and just make them seem hilarious, it makes me happy.
And to me, this is sort of Douglas Adams in a nutshell. I know of some of the aspects of Douglas Adams' life, not because I'm interested in him. I was interested in a different guy. We'll talk about it in a bit. A guy called Stephen Fry. He's got
Mm.
2 biographies that I've read or listened to, more like. And it's very interesting how he reflects on Douglas Adams as a person and his body of work. So
Yeah.
before we begin everything, if you want to interact with me, you want to interact with the show, this show, the Monday show, whatever, you can always go to Xer or Twixer or Twix.
It's called
Uh,
Twitter.
yeah, whatever. It's Twitter. At Meffistoe on X or Twitter. You can always go to Instagram at Meffistoe79 right there. And you can always email the show at the Real McCoy Podcast, gmail.com. And of course, Amarada is on her way to 1,000 subscribers. She is very close to 500. Are you doing something special for the 500?
If I get to 500 by Halloween, I will do a 12-hour stream. Now, on the off chance, the very unlikely off chance I get to 1,000, I will change that to 24 hours. So
You're a
that's the deal.
brave woman. And of course, Rumble. All the links are down below. And I think you also are doing Kick, right?
I'm on Kick too. Basically, I'm
so-
on everything but Odyssey.
Everything but Odyssey. I'm on Odyssey, but it's literally
I mean, I have an
synced to
Odyssey channel,
Yeah.
but I don't ever go and interact with it at all.
Is it synced to your YouTube?
I don't
or
think so. I should probably set that up.
Yeah. And literally upload more to YouTube. But It is what it is.
Fine.
Anyway, we were late because we were literally diving into short making.
Yes.
Where I'm not an expert, but
He's definitely got more knowledge than I do. We'll put it that way.
yeah, I really dived into it, and I'm literally trying to make more informative shorts rather than just like splatter something. So it's fun and it's a bane on the existence, but it is what it is. All right. Okay.
That reminds me, I'm going to take a note real quick to ask you about later.
Yeah, you do that. Let's say hello to the people in the chat, Paul, Harley, and The Beast, joining us this evening. And Sheep CDN, thank you for joining us today. You're probably in that room.
You can literally just right. Hold on.
Sheep.
I
doing Sheep.
See what the
Anyway.
There he is.
There. We're diverse.
Shit, I can just set you up like that.
We're
you can be on everything with me.
That goes on the next blooper shorts. Anyway, we're completely diverse on the show. So we've got Jewish, we've got a lady, and we've got a black man. It's time to do Behind the Screens.
Ooh.
Production take 2.
Behind the Screens is where we look at everything that is behind the scenes, the production stuff, all that good snippy, and let's just start right there. Right, so this movie has been in production hell for about, give or take, 23 years. So Douglas Adams really, when he made, if you know or don't know, it started off as a radio show, didn't even start as then it became a book. Then it became a TV series by the BBC. And then, of course, after that, Douglas Adams thought, well, let's just make it into a movie because I can see some concepts here. And he started writing this screenplay. All the extra bits that is not in the book or in the TV series or in the radio show, all of it is a completely new thing by Douglas Adams. He added it himself. I was not aware of that. I thought it was like, oh, this is a Hollywood movie. They added these sort of things, but no. All of it is Douglas Adams. Now, because he passed away in 2004, before he literally ended the screenplay, they had to bring in a special writer. I couldn't find out his name. It's probably in the credits. Because I do really great research. But
you really miss all my feelings.
They brought the writer just to make sure the screenplay is coherent, because Douglas Adams used to like spill things onto the page, and then his editor was like, no, this needs to be more structured. And he was notoriously he was always late to produce some sort of material. He was. And this is from Stephen Fry's biography. He was like, he always came by, messed around with a computer or whatever. I was like, aren't you supposed to like hand this in? It's like, it's due in 2 weeks. And his wife would have gone into the room. It's like, no, Douglas, this was due 2 weeks ago. So that's a lot of fun. Right. After it sort of was in development hell, they were really close to striking a deal with the director Jay Roach, and they already had some sort of cast in mind as Hugh Laurie as Arthur Dent, which would have been great.
Amazing. I would have loved that.
Jim Carrey as Zaphod Beeblebrox, and Nigel Hawthorne for Slarty Bartfast. I'm sorry, I wrecked that name, but you can always say that in English.
It's one of those names you can't say without laughing.
To be perfectly fair, and I'll go down in my thing, the only reason that name actually exists was Douglas Adams knew this was going to be a radio show. Now, radio BBC, you have to be prim, proper, all that good stuff. Douglas Adams had the name pushed as far as he can into how rude I can go without being by the BBC Radio. Now, this was about the fourth name that he used until it got, yeah, it's kind of funny and it kind of sounds like fart, but on paper, it doesn't seem like it's rude. So they just cleared it. So back in 1982, which was about a year after the TV show, producers Ivan Reitman, Chris Gross, I think, and Mudchuck actually optioned the rights to the movies. They actually bought it, and Douglas Adams actually wrote 3 different drafts. Gross and Mudchuck were looking to cast either Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd as Ford Prefect.
Ooh.
Then Dan Aykroyd submitted the script for Ghostbusters, and that all turned to shit. So blame Dan Aykroyd for Ghostbusters.
I like Ghostbusters, but
yeah. When they finally sort of the deal with Jay Roach kind of fell by the wayside. He actually referred the producers who wanted to, like, not the producers, but the studio. I think it was Spyglass and Touchstone, and Disney was involved as well. So Disney was the big, I think, the distributor. So Jay Roach said, well, why don't you just go to Spike Jonze? Because he was friends with Spike Jonze. And Spike Jonze said, well, I really don't have any time. He had a couple of projects at the time. So he said, why don't you go to Garth Jennings? He's a really good dude. He has this show that he does on BBC, and he's never done a movie, but he's a really big Douglas Adams fan. Garth Jennings went into, with his sort of the same crew that was doing this TV show at the time, went into Disney headquarters, and they just approved it immediately. He came in with lots of ideas, and they were like, I think they were gonna pass, and they went to the car, and him and his producer was so giggly, and so he said they started to drive in this boulevard, and it was like, just don't crash now. Documentary that they did for it, don't crash. Because they left it, they went in with zero expectations, and they left with, oh yeah, you're going to make the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Have a little bit of money and just go, which was fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Zaphod Beeblebrox. As soon as Garth Jennings went into production, Bill Murray was up, Robert Downey Jr., Will Ferrell, Johnny Depp were all considered. They all read for it. Sam Rockwell comes in, does that little Sam Rockwell dance, immediately gets the job.
I think I would have rather seen Bill Murray, but Sam Rockwell did an okay job.
I would actually want to see Robert Downey Jr. However, the movie came out 2005. They were working on it for about 2+ years.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been in the middle of coked out Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So not so much. Rockwell himself, when they interviewed him for, I've seen 4 different interviews. In all of them, he said one of the models for Zaphod was actually Bill Clinton, sort of a rock star president. And I was like, Bill Clinton? Are you talking about 1992 Bill Clinton or 2000 Bill Clinton? Which one?
The one that got the blowjob by the...
correct.
So
that is midway through Bill Clinton. But also, it's sort of an amalgamation of Bill Clinton, Elvis, Patrick Swayze, but it's Point Break Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
If you could tell the hair, it looks kind of like Point Break Patrick Swayze. And also Spicoli from it's like the Sean Penn character from Fast Times in Ridgemont High. Spicoli. I didn't see it, but I didn't see it. But okay,
just a little bit in the airiness. You can kind of just, you know.
I get it. Anyway, Douglas Adams, before he died, when he again, the screenplay was mostly done.
Mm,
He insisted that Arthur Dent would be cast as British. So everybody else could be
that makes sense.
whatever. It could be whatever. Even Trillian can be whatever. Like she could be. It literally says she can even be Arabian. That's what he said. I was like, okay. So, so Fort Prefect, Zaphod, all the different characters that are from sort of that universe can be whatever denomination, whatever, not gender, but all the different
Just
races. But
they don't
Arthur
care.
Dent needs to be not only man, white, and human.
But
And
British
sorry,
specifically.
man, white, and British.
Yes.
Because a lot of the British mannerisms are there.
It's very, I mean, the character of Arthur Dent is very, very British. So,
Yeah. So, Jack Davenport. It's the so the admiral from Pirates of the Caribbean, the one that goes into the hurricane to chase after Jack Sparrow.
Mhm.
He was considered for the role of Arthur Dent, but he was deemed to be too good looking for the
Yeah.
role.
Yeah, he's too rugged. That wouldn't have worked at all.
Yeah, and before his death, Adams, and before it actually went off the ground, the last kind of thing that input that Douglas Adams gave as a suggestion for the role is actually Hugh Grant. And to be fair, Martin Freeman in that role is kind of like a Hugh Grant-ish thing, where in the book he's much more assertive. At least at least to my knowledge, like I felt like he wasn't that bumbling of an idiot.
He was a pretty bumbling idiot in the book. But I mean, he probably had maybe just a little more competency, but not a whole lot.
All right. The movie has a little bit of a Harry Potter tie-ins. Alan Rickman, who's the voice of Marvin, and Warwick Davis, the man who is literally in the suit, played Snape and Flitwick. Bill Nye played who played Slarty Bartfrost, was Rufus Scrimjaw, and Richard Griffith, who is Vernon Dursley, played the Vogon Jeltz, who is the guy who's reading the poetry. Deep Thought reveals the ultimate answer, 42, at the 42-minute mark of the movie. He also has I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. He also has a shot where you can see a small Apple logo on the back of the computer. Didn't see it. Supposedly it is there. I didn't see it. It's because of Douglas Adams' love for the Apple products. I'll get to that in a minute. According to the DVD commentary, the crew that animated the guide, the cartoonists who did the guide portions, had a lot of inside jokes, and most of them were deemed inappropriate for a family movie. It's a Disney distributed movie, so some of them didn't go. Most of them didn't go in. One actually slipped by was the moment where the farmer is milking the cow, and the cow has the fish, and the cow falls in love with the farmer. So there's a little bubble of love. It's like that was that kind of slipped by, but it's sort of inside jokes. There are several moments in the movie where you can actually see Douglas Adams or his head. There's one during one of the jumps. It has there's a bust of his head. It's like sort of blink and you missed it. I missed it. Try to found it, and it's there. And there's one on the there's a bust of him when they go through the different planets. It's sort of far in the distance, and they're building it up, sort of like a planet that looks like his face.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I went through the like I said, the Slutty Bart Farce face and face. The name of it, it's literally he's trying to go through the BBC. Right. The word Belgium is spoken a few times in the movie because, according to the book, Belgium is the rudest word in the galaxy. The Heart of Gold, and I confirmed that, is there's something I found somewhere, and then I confirmed that with that documentary. The Heart of Gold had a set with 4,500 light bulbs. Now, these are not LED light bulbs. These are just your regular run-of-the-mill light bulbs. Now, they literally had them into the seams of the ship. The entire set was built with different levels. So the bridge is one side. The corridors are literally like in a circle rather than just a straight down hallway on purpose to make sure you don't get the same sort of Star Trek feel where you have like these straight corridors on purpose. The Trillian's shower is another set. The room where the sort of the storage room where they kind of
Pop in.
they pop in as sofas. That's a different room. That's all rooms that are different from the main place, and everything is there. They couldn't light the entire set for more than 8 minutes. Like full-on lights that you see in the scene where it's all white. You couldn't light it for more than 8 minutes. Otherwise, everything would have been catching fire. Now, we've covered a different movie that had sort of the same problem. In 2001, The Space Odyssey, at the very end, there's a room where there's all lights and light on the floor. They couldn't light the floor for more than a few minutes because it would literally heat up the room so much that people would be like, we can't be in this room. Right. Garth Jennings, the director, insisted to have real men in suits as the Vogons. All the Vogon animatronics, all the dolls, everything was done by the Jim Henson company. It kind of shows, if you know the Jim Henson kind of way of doing things.
Yeah.
It shows. There's a great video that I've seen of them training, because there's moments where you have sort of that army that they kind of march in through, and then they're shooting those weird guns and missing all over the place. They had to do that actually blind. They were literally practicing calling out people so they can measure out distance with sound. Each of them had numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So number 1 was always number 1. Number 13 was always number 13. And they used to shout, make sure to know where they're standing. And then they had literally marching orders to work on before they built the suits. Then they had the suits without the head, moving like that, and then having a full-on head and just moving literally in the dark.
Wow.
With a little bit of a headset inside as they working in with the animatronics, and the sounds of the little, it kind of works all the time because they have to look like they're lively.
Mm-hmm.
So their face is moving a little bit as they're walking, and it's just a full on, like you see a military kind of, when they're marching and they're trying to make shapes. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that. It's predetermined, and you just have to right and left and all that stuff. And the whole point is Garth Jennings wanted the least amount of CGI possible for everything. So the ship itself has CGI elements to it, but the stuff that I didn't think was CGI had no CGI. So the whale was not CGI'd at all. It was a complete whale. I think it was about 10 feet long. So it's big, right? and they didn't throw it, but it wasn't an environment of CGI, obviously.
Right.
Uh, but I thought it was complete CGI. It was not.
I always thought it was CGI too. Wow.
Exactly. The bowl of petunias, not CGI. It looks very CGI, but it's not.
Wonder if that's because it's real in a CGI environment.
I don't know. I thought it was full on CGI, but that whole bit, that whale, as they actually built it, Jim Henson Company.
Wow.
Warwick Davis, who was in the Marvin suit, said it was one of the most challenging things he ever did.
Oh, wow.
Because the suit was about, in the interview I saw, he said in stone because fucking British. So the suit itself was 55 pounds. Warwick Davis was 85 pounds.
Damn.
So he was carrying 3/4 of his body.
To his own weight, yeah.
And that head was, if you look at it, and we'll show it later on, it's literally tilting forward. So it's really, really difficult, especially when he had to do that last shot where he died.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of like practiced it as if he was John Wayne, kind of like moving, staggering forward, staggering back, turning around and dropping. He said that the thing that scared him the most was the dropping part because the suit was very, very expensive. Until they told him, well, when we drop it, you're not in the suit. We'll just tip it over. So it's fine. You won't be the one that's wrecking the suit. But
he probably felt a lot better.
But there's moments where they had to work on doing some shots. So what they did was actually slide in this little brick. Because in the suit, he can literally sit down in the suit and it would drop. There's a few moments in the movie where he drops down, especially in that death scene. But there's stuff that you can slide in so he can sit on it while they're taking off the head and adjusting like lights and everything to make the shot work. Right. Garth Jennings met John Malkovich for the very first time the day they shot the hymn. So the big, sort of the big hymn with the crowd and everything. And John Malkovich never read that hymn part ever. He had to sing it from a page as everybody else is singing it. Now, the crowd themselves were actually extras, and they already knew the lines because they sort of met before in this church. And when they shot the real thing, they had to go into this Messianic church in somewhere in Britain, and they just actually sang the entire hymn as John Malkovich was singing it. Now, there's a moment where he goes like this, right? He goes to the top, and it was a complete ad lib. He wasn't supposed to do that. They cut the shot. He went to the director and he said, "I'm really sorry. I know you're not supposed to see the person's nostrils, but the director said, actually, because it's the whole point is that it's the noses, it actually so I'm good with it." It's like they did the shot and it was just a one shot.
Nice.
Yeah. The one last thing that I've got, and we'll just continue on, is the most frustrating thing to do in the entire movie, according to the director, is actually shooting the mice going through the table.
Yeah,
now,
I'm sure.
The woman who did the food design actually needed to cook food that mice wouldn't particularly eat. That's why it's filled with like sweets and pinks and reds, because the mice have red eyes and they don't actually can see the reds part. It's like they don't see that color, so it's not enticing for them to eat. So they literally had to pluck them. They had a mice handler. He plucked it at one point, and they had to go through this literal maze of dishes. And if they didn't go through the right one, they had to take them back and just plop it again and do it again and again and again and again until it actually works. And so they plopped it in one place, they plopped them in another place until it actually worked. When there's
That's
mice on that little cart, right? Those are fake mice. They look real, but they're fake. And that's the point where they're actually, you see them sort of talking.
Yeah.
That's an added CGI. But the rest of it is actual real mice. Now, the handler said, well, I've been handling mice for a very long time. And sometimes you get really smart mice that you can train. And sometimes you actually get really dumb mice that you can never train. And I was like, I actually do have a little bit of experience with that. I'm not a mice handler in that sort of a way, but I do deal with mice and rats, and they are very smart sometimes, not all the time. And
Now, there's some that are definitely smarter than others.
That is about it. There are a few other points, but generally speaking, the way that Martin Freeman was like solidified, and both Zooey Deschanel, both kind of solidified in the role, is the fact that they put them on this test screen, and they both had a chemistry, but not the sort of chemistry that you would expect.
Not the right kind of chemistry.
They both kind of they both were kind of goofballs with each other. And to the director, it actually kind of worked because he wanted them to be a little bit more goofy rather than just full-on straight lovey-dovey.
Right. They have that awkward sort of chemistry.
Exactly. He was actually wanting that because I'm not sure. I've read the book this week. They're not super lovey-dovey in the book as they are in the film, right?
I mean, even in the film, they're not even really lovey-dovey. But yeah, they're very awkward and unusual would be the way I would put it. So
yeah, the whole relationship kind of starts with more traditional boy meets girl, boy kind of falls in love with girl walks up with this crazy mad
girl disappears with alien guy and
girl disappears with alien, and boy kind of left
Earth gets blown up and boy ends up back in girl's lap. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally normal stuff happens all the time.
Literally it starts with boy meets girl at a party and being a little bit awkward. And to be honest, in the book it doesn't say that way, but in the film you kind of get the extra bits where Douglas Adams kind of wrote the stuff that he didn't quite wrote in the book, where you see she wants to, you understand why she went with Zaphod, because she wanted the adventure. She wanted to leave Britain to explore different things. What is the most unusual thing from Britain? Oh, Madagascar, which is, sort of apples, not apples and oranges, like apples and fucking Dorian or whatever. All right, cool. Before we actually start, let's just have a little game, shall we?
Yes.
You know the game. It is called Missing Marquis. Missing Marquis is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, display them in Horror Armorata, and the chat will have to guess which movie this is. And here we... No.
Oh, this one's easy. This is big.
Big.
Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, is this Dawn of the Dead?
This is Dawn of the Dead, correct.
Horrible Bosses.
Horrible Bosses, underrated movie.
I don't know if this is Hot Shots or Hot Shots Part 2, but it's one of them.
This is, of course, Hot Shots Part 2.
Men in Black.
Men in Black.
I should know this one. And I can't remember it. Why is it always Morgan Freeman tripping me up?
This came out...
Not Contagion.
Not Contagion. That's 2013.
Infection. Something along those lines.
Yes. Chat, please help.
Oh.
Came out the same year as 7 and did way worse than 7.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember the Quarantine. I don't think that was it. No.
Quarantine.
I'm pretty sure it begins with a C, and it's a word that means like contagious.
Begins with an O.
Begins with an O. Outbreak. There we go.
Outbreak is correct.
Superman 2
No.
or 3?
Superman 3, because you can tell by
I saw Richard Pryor. Yeah, I couldn't remember if he was 2 or 3 though. Is this Book of Eli?
Book of Eli, correct.
Fugitive.
Fugitive is correct. No, I don't. Fucking restream. Damn it.
It's just your misogyny showing. It's okay.
Oh, of course. It's my inner. It's my inner Stallone. Anyway. All right, cool. Let me just bring up that. Okay. The movie.
I'm not a film buff either, honey. I don't know why I got all those except for Outbreak.
It actually starts with this.
The best thing ever. I love this.
This thing was done on a whim. Literally, this thing was prepared, done on a complete and utter whim. The guy singing the song was having the time of his life.
And it shows.
They gave him an orchestra, and he said he was looking at the sheet, and he was like, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in my entire life." And I was like, but I know who wrote this. This is a British guy. It's like, I know who wrote this, and this is fabulous.
Yeah.
This is so awesome. This starts with, it's sort of, to me, if you never read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this is like sort of exposition dump without being so this is what you need to know about this movie.
Right.
Like, this is so great because it's literally explaining something that is so crucial to the movie, that the dolphins have left the earth just before it was destroyed. And they were literally telling us that it's going to be destroyed, but we misunderstood them, which is...
We're just too dumb to know.
Exactly, which to me is sort of Douglas Adams' British humor, very, very much so. And it's so lovely. And I didn't particularly like the song. I just love the humor in it. The humor in it was the greatest thing ever. And right, so the start of the movie, where Arthur Dent kind of realizes, yeah, they're gonna wipe out my house, and the entire start of the movie actually reflects the sort of, it tells you the small story, but it actually refers to the big story, because Arthur's house is about to demolish, same way the entire human race's house is about to be demolished for the same exact reason. And the same bureaucrats buried it somewhere else so that nobody would get
Nobody
it.
thought to look there.
Exactly. And to me, the whole start of the movie is very in line with the book.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a few bits and pieces that we're missing, but not a lot. It's very much within line of the book.
Yeah, it's almost beat for beat. So
Yeah, sort of. Arthur lays down in front of the bulldozers. The guy was trying to bulldoze. Even says, "Do you think what do you think you'll do to the bulldozer?" It's like, what? Absolutely nothing. We'll just run you over. We're not there. As kind of Ford Prefect kind of whisked them away, and it's like,
yeah,
we need to have a drink. And to me, it kind of reminds me of sort of like Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright humor, where let's just go to the pub and to wait until this thing blows over. And sort of that reminded me of that humor. And they came out 2 years apart. Literally, I think Edgar Wright more looked at the books rather than just that, but it kind of felt sort of the same way to me.
No, and most things Edgar Wright's done all through the trilogy, the Cornetto trilogy. It's very Douglas Adams-esque.
Yeah, very much like in line with that specific humor.
Hmm.
And then, of course, while they're sitting down, we get sort of a reminder because in the book, it kind of touches upon that, but it's about 5 sentences. And here you get a full on scene, like I said, where you kind of realize where Trillian or Trisha McMillan is coming from, why she left with Zaphod, and why she's going off into this wonderful adventure. Now, the thing that is missing here is the part of Trillian actually helping Zaphod steal the
Heart of
entire
gold.
ship,
Yeah.
where you can get a glimpse of it at a newscast where they're telling everybody that he's stolen the ship.
Hmm.
And so that whole ceremony is down to like this 2-second newscast. And then up on the Vogon ship, we get a little bit of a glimpse of the guide to the galaxy itself, where he goes into that whole animation. Now, the narrator of the guide is Stephen Fry, a really good friend of Douglas Adams, years and years and years. I mentioned the Apple logo on Deep Thought. The Apple logo, like I said, is to have that little reminder that Douglas Adams was a big proponent of Apple computers. There were the first 3 Apple Macintosh computers in the UK. 2 of them were Douglas Adams's, and the third one was Stephen Fry's.
That's funny.
That's hilarious. That's just to tell you that sort of a friendship, what connected them. It literally something else connected them. Their love for radio and writing. I think they connected when Stephen Fry was trying to write something for Hollywood for some sort of musical, and he got like tips from Douglas Adams about writing. And when he came to visit him one time, I was like, "Ooh, what's this? Oh, this is an Apple computer. This is what delayed this and this project." I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And they literally sat down for like 6 hours and just wasted time and just writing code and doing all sorts of things that you couldn't do with a regular IBM computer or Commodore 64 or whatever. And to me, a lot of the parts from the start are actually like word for word from the book, right?
Yeah.
I think one maybe not off script a little bit, but mostly they're all straight quotes from the book.
Yeah. I mean, if they're not exact, they're about as close as you can expect anything to be.
And I love the fact that this is 2005, and the book itself, when it opens, it kind of looks like a folding tablet, which is fun because that's kind of how it's in the book. It's literally referred to as a tablet with a "Don't Panic" on the side of it.
Yep.
And
In big friendly letters.
It's even down to, there's a deleted scene actually of when he reads the tablet, and he's looking for the entry for Earth, because there's a whole conversation between him and Ford while that in that storage room of, "Oh, what did you write in the book?" And Ford is literally saying, "Well, I did write the entry for Earth." He's looking at it and it says harmless.
Mostly harmless.
No, it says harmless.
Oh, does it?
In the deleted scene, it says harmless, and then the Earth explodes and it turns into mostly harmless. But they deleted that.
Oh.
Because I think Garth Jennings said it didn't contribute too much to the film, and you can leave it or drop it. And they just chose to drop it in terms of we want to pay attention to the extra stuff that were not in the book to showcase Douglas Adams' like new works. Now, I did mention it a little bit about Douglas Adams always thinking that this is going to be a movie. He was really pushing to make it into this cinematic thing. and to add more stuff that was not in the original, like even in the 5 books, so Huma Kavala is a full-on new character. His followers are mentioned. Wait, need to look at my notes. The 4th book or the 5th book as a race, but they're sort of like they skim past through. They just talk about it as a race and they just skim it by. And now he just gave them a little bit more substance, a little bit more that, and it gave Zaphod Beeblebrook sort of a antagonist, and sort of working on the fact that Zaphod kind of split his mind into two and cauterized something in there to make him forget. Sort of that is sort of the explanation of Huma Kavala. At least that's what I know.
No, you're accurate. I gotta say, of everything in the movie, the only thing that really disappointed me was Zaphod's design.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Tell me.
Well, because when you read the books, they talk about the fact he has 2 heads. And the heads, from the way I read the book, sound like they're both on his shoulders. So, like, they would talk about how one head was talking, the other one was looking at it, or the other head looked bored, and you didn't get that in the third arm thing, which, I mean, it kind of comes into the movie, but you still don't really see it. And I just, it varies enough from the description of him in the book that it made me sad, because I'd have much rather seen that version of Zaphod than that. And in the movie, he came off way more goofy, while in the book, he seemed more arrogant.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would say so. Have you seen the Zaphod Beeblebrook's TV show ever as an image? Okay, I'll this is gonna be fine. I need to get there's no good like images, so I'll bring it up on screen in a bit. This is what the TV show had. So the only head that could talk was the guy acting as Zaphod Beeblebrook. The puppet head was always that puppet head.
Yeah.
It didn't work. It was 81, 80, something like that. So it wasn't, they wouldn't be able to do much of animatronics.
No.
Not as small as they needed it to be.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they didn't do it, but it's still,
Yeah, but it's a low budget TV show. Like it was low budget. It like Doctor Who at the time had like a way bigger budget than that show. So so that was Beeblebrook's. That was he's supposed to be. So he in the book he had 2 heads on his shoulders.
Right.
And they were. I don't think they were talking at the same time.
No, they never talked at the same time.
Yeah, he didn't have any arguments with his head. It was either one head or the other. And in this one, intentionally, one head was supposed to be sort of like the jolly, good-natured side of Beeblebrook. And they even say it was like he's the most, let's say, the good guy. And the other guy was the rude, obnoxious, annoying, the bad side, the rude side of his personality.
And
that's
it's
about
when
it.
you read further in the books, you discover that he actually got the second head to split that information out of us. But yeah.
And in the first book, he said that he not cut his head, but he cut his brain and cauterized it to make sure he doesn't remember something specific. But he also split his brain into 2.
Right.
Anyways. Why I did that, I made myself forget.
I don't know why I did it. Yeah.
Right. So we talked about the Vogons, and the Vogon poetry was legit stupid.
Yeah.
It was less annoying. It was just more stupid. Now the Vogon design, and this I didn't mention in the behind the scenes. The Vogons in the book are like descended from sort of a slug, if I'm not mistaken. In here, their design is sort of like the initial design was coming from an old caricature some guy named Gilroy or Gilray. He was literally a cartoonist in the 1800s in London. He always did politicians, and he always had their nose stuck up in the air. Not as much as this. Now, further on in the movie, where they're going on to Vogsphere to save Trillian, they're going into this place, and every time they have some sort of original thought, they get smacked in the face. So,
Or any thought, really.
so the director thought the design should be that these Vogons have been literally conditioned to be like not thinking originally and being very bureaucratic, because otherwise they would be smacked in the face. And from an early age, they've been smacked in the face so many times, because as children, we have sort of a inquisitive mind and an imagination. So that those things would have like smacked them so much in the face, it would be like you would get punched and your nose would be stuck up anyways. Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you see them like in the suit and have the entire animatronic head on their face, it's so interesting, because the guy is literally at the back of that suit and he's carrying all this front load puppetry.
God, that's got to be heavy.
And when they were doing the shoots, the voices were like the people doing the voices were actually on set. So you can play. Yeah. One of the things that Jennings wanted was to have something that you can play off of. So when you talk to the puppet and when you did actual acting, the voice actor was actually there, and the puppet moved it, and they moved the entire puppet, and they did the voice acting, so you wouldn't have to act with a sort of a tennis ball, because yeah.
I think that's what scares me is listening to this now, is that you hear how much this guy cared about the quality of his acting and giving his actors the best situation in which they could perform a good piece. Like he actually cared about it. And now you don't hear that so much.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, one of the moments that kind of, blew my mind, even though it wasn't supposed to, when they were sitting down doing that first read, okay, there's always a table read with everybody there, all the cast members. You go through the entire script and you read it and you sort of play act it and see where you can improve it. The actors give their own input, all that good stuff. He comes into this meeting where most of the auditions were done over some sort of long distance. He was working back in the UK. And all the casting directors were in California mostly. When they were sitting down, that's the first time everybody met the director in face to face. He literally opened up with, "Before we begin, we've been working on this for a year now, and it's not like they were working on the script for a year. They were working on building the set. The set took about the Heart of Gold took about 8 months to build. Before they even did the read, everything was already pre-built, storyboarded. The animation people, the cartoon, the guide animation, were already working on it. The CGI was already starting to come through because they had the idea. They had a person working on about 37 different versions of the Heart of Gold until they got to that sphere.
Wow.
One of the iterations of the Heart of Gold was actually a stiletto shoe that had the heel part would have protruded. It would have been a little bit more up, usually in space, and then protruded down for the landing part. So all of it was pre-prepared before the actors got into the suits and got into the role. And all that stuff is sort of like, where is this today? Like, maybe we're not hearing about it, but where is this pre-preparation thing that is not going on? And it's missing because it's not only the preparation, it's the fact that it's carrying out the vision of the director that is most important. So the director wants something, he has his producer that he's working through, not an executive producer from the studios, but a producer who's like, okay, you need this, I'll make sure this is happening. All that has been going on, especially like I said, the part where they trained for the Vogons actually marching through. That all happened way before the shoot, way before the table read. And it's missing because it's, to be honest, going into this movie, I said I watched it about a couple of times, never really liked it, never really liked the source material. Now, as a movie itself, I really appreciate what all the work that was going through this, because I mentioned the design of the ship. Do you see the sort of that blue ring in front of the ship?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Looks like an
actually
apple.
pictures from moments in the book, but
Oh,
it's
wow.
done with the pictures of the actual actors. And the
Oh.
whole point of it being white and blue is at the start of the movie, Arthur Dent is drinking his morning tea. And so it's a teacup. So it's the same coloring as a teacup.
Teacup,
He's using a blue and white teacup to drink his morning tea, which is, like I said, Douglas Adams wanted Arthur Dent to be, at least him, to be the only British guy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and it's the same design on the front of the ship is the same design as you press the improbability drive. It's in the design, and it just shows how much thought was going into just making it look like something that is worthy of Douglas Adams. That's why his head is popping everywhere. Up down to the fact that they had a Sam Rockwell picture inside that set.
Mm-hmm. It just goes to show what happens when you give a director source material that they love,
Yeah.
and it's scary. You're doing Hudson Hawk next week.
What? I'm
You're
doing
doing Hudson
Hawk.
Hawk.
Yes.
Oh, when do you do? Is
Next
what
week.
she's saying. Well,
Yeah.
you're
When do I do Hudson Hawk? Becky, yes, next week. Next week. I just wanted to literally. Do you see the that poster? It's literally up there. His poster. They took that picture, and it's one of the pictures from around that front of the ship.
Oh, cool.
It's so cool. I never knew that, and it's just so good. It just shows you again how much they went into making
All
this
those little
movie
details.
making look the best it ever was. Now, we saw Marvin there. The voice of Marvin is Alan Rickman. I didn't see a single interview with Alan Rickman about this movie.
Really?
I've seen, like, they interviewed Stephen Fry. They interviewed Bill. I forgot his last name. The guy who does the voice for the whale. He's a very well-known British dude. I need to look for his name right now because he's like a musician / comedian. Let me just check because I've written it down and now I completely forgot. Come on. Cast. Bill Bailey. Bill Bailey. If you see his picture, you'll know exactly who that is. He literally came in, did his entire spiel one day. A couple of takes, of course, because it's a voiceover. You have to make it right. But he said he had so much fun just coming in, doing the voice. And it was just, it's a throwaway moment of them just slipping away from danger from the nuclear missiles, where you would think it wouldn't be nuclear missiles. But, at the time when Douglas Adams wrote it, it was nuclear missiles. But it's just, it's it's a fun little bit where I didn't see any interviews with Alan Rickman for this thing, and it was so good. It was done so well because you literally felt like it's the same Marvin from the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
I think half his lines were direct quotes from the book, and the other half were like so close. I think
I would
in the
like to know if they were impromptu or written. That would be interesting to know.
I couldn't tell you. That thing I couldn't find because there's literally no. It's like they interviewed everybody for that documentary. I tried to look for like interviews from back in the day, him talking about it. I couldn't find any.
Yeah, you can
Which
see
was weird.
Davis talking about being in the suit, but you don't see anything about the voice.
Which is weird because it's only 2005. He died at 2016 and nothing.
Yeah.
Which is odd, but okay. So one thing they've 42 minutes. There we go. The voice of Deep Thought is the amazing Helen Mirren. Now, I didn't know that. I didn't know for the book, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Why Helen Mirren? Couldn't tell you. They didn't interview her for this thing. The only thing I've got as a little quote was she had the most fun doing this because she loves Douglas Adams. That's the only thing I could find. And I was like, again, going to people who love the source material that are excited to do even the most minute role, even though Deep Thought is like, it's a pretty critical.
I mean, it's a huge role, but tiny amount of lines.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge plot point, but it's not a lot of lines. And yet it's very interesting that she did that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. The deviation moment. One of the deviation moments is Huma Kavala. We talked about this. He goes in and he strikes a deal where he leaves his rude head at Huma Kavala because he needed the coordinates to Magrathea. Now, that's a deviation from the book because in the book, they just arrive at Magrathea.
They just, yeah.
Because the improbability drive that improbability drive drives the actual story of Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent incidentally getting like caught in the last second before they die. Then
by the girl that he had tried to get the phone number at a party, who's also dating the guy who's the friend of Ford Prefect, and
from Beetlejuice. There's a moment there where he calls him Ix. There's a whole story about why is it Ix. It's sort of the number of the planets of Beetlejuice, somewhere or other. I found it interesting, but not totally interesting. The most interesting part is the fact that Sam Rockwell and Mos Def kind of winged it when it came to that little dance that they did. When they meet up, they hug and they do that little dance.
Yeah.
So they came up with that thing on the spot, and they went to the director. Was like, can we do this? It was like, fuck yeah, you can do this. It's a lot of moments where the director was really open to doing stuff on the fly, but it fit with sort of like it was in the boundaries of the comedy that they were trying to convey. Of course, that two people that have been friends forever kind of like had the either a special hug, like sort of like their secret handshake kind of a thing. But they're doing that little nifty dance that they're doing. So it's kind of a wild thing. And it's Sam Rockwell dancing again in a movie. It's like, of course. And I love the fact that when the Vogons kind of crashed that little party, it's like Zaphod is standing there being the most Sam Rockwell ever, doing a crazy dance. Like, you can't shoot me because can't shoot like nothing. You don't. can't shoot anything. But everybody else is worried for Zaphod. But of course, Trillian gets abducted, got back to his Vogue spirit. That's not in the book, but
Nope.
it's something sort of like to drive them into. To me, it's Douglas Adams' way of, I want to show you what's it like in Vogon Sphere. Now, is Vogon Sphere? Have they gone into Vogon Sphere in the other books? I don't know.
There is a part in the other books where they end up in that area. I mean, it's kind of like when he drags in Huma Kavula to show more of the universe. I think it's that kind of same thing where he pulls it in from the other book a little to flesh it out more.
And to me, one of the things, again, it kind of reminded me of the same kind of humor, is the fact that Fort Prefect knows that Zaphod is a little bit out of whack because they stolen his other head. So he's using sort of not really the zest, but the juice, but they kind of referring that into the zest to make him zesty, right? To have the juice to make him zesty, to make him awake and be ready for action. And I'm not sure if I remember. There's a moment, I'm not sure if it's not in the first book, but it's in the other book where they leave Marvin for like 2 million years or something. It's in the second book, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's something to do with the restaurant, when they end up in the restaurant, right?
The restaurant at the end of the universe, yeah.
And when they come back to Marvin, he was waiting for them for about 2 million years or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I was like, is this the part where they're gonna leave him? But they leave him with they leave him with Arthur when they go to Magrathea, right? And I thought he would leave him for about 2 million years there in Magrathea for some reason, but he actually doesn't.
No, but no, he ends up on the ship in the end.
Yeah, and yeah, the stuff that smacks him, and I love the fact that they keep getting smacked, and then they have. To me, it was the most slapstick moment ever, where they're like, "Okay, stop! Don't think of everything," and you have that 2 seconds, and then they're all getting
slapped, yeah.
Getting smacked. Like, it's the most cheap joke ever, but it works. And we're like, and they had that sort of fuck it moment where it's like, okay, we're gonna get smacked anyway, and let's just run. And they keep getting smacked all over the time. It's like, oh, this is fucking hilarious. This is so good. And when they burst through the door, they have Marvin's hand, arm, and they're burst through the door. It's like, where's Trillian? And there's like a receptionist there, and it's like, what did you want? Okay, you have to go to Windows 7.
And fill out the paperwork.
And to me, this is very much, I don't know if you're aware of it. Have you ever heard about the cartoon Asterix and Obelisk? I keep fucking up the name. There's a French, it started as a French comic book, Asterix and Obelix, about Franks in Gaul, opposing the Roman Empire, and they have this little potion that they drink to make them strong and beat all the Romans. That's the premise, basically. In one of the movies that they've done, a full-on cartoon movie, they're going to Rome to save Gaul, but they entered into this bureaucracy kind of building, and they keep getting sent to different. It's like you have to go to floor 7 to get the paperwork, and then go to window 2, aisle 7. That whole, there's a 7-minute sort of the running through, and they're getting so annoyed and so frustrated. So they don't understand how the Roman Empire actually exists with all this bureaucracy. It's the same kind of thing that they got through in this movie, up until the moment where they actually find Trillian and kind of save her. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's so good. But here it's done very, very well, because Arthur Dent shows his true British nature. It's like, oh, it's a cue. I'm British. I know how to cue. And if you ever talk to any British person, and I've been to the UK several times, they are proud of it. They're actually super proud of it.
They love their lines. They love their lines.
They love their love cueing. One additional thing that we have in this movie, as apart from the book itself, is the vice president. I think her name is Anna Chancellor. They brought her in and told her that she needs to fill in the gaps where there's no vice president, as far as I know, in the books. And she's supposed to be sort of she's trying to find Zaphod because he's the president, but her ulterior motive is the fact that she's in love with Zaphod. Now, there is a moment where it's a deleted scene right at the end where they sort of have a moment as sort of a kiss inside Arthur's demolished trailer home, mobile home. But they cut that away from the movie for some reason because either time or it didn't fit right. It sort of comes to show you her real true motivations of finding him rather than just putting him in jail because he stole the heart of gold. But I don't know. Would you miss that sort of? I don't think you would miss that sort of scene where confesses her love and they kiss.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't really have added anything to the movie. I mean, you can tell even in the movie that part of her obsession was just him, not the crime or anything. It was just him. So you didn't need to add that in the end.
And a point of contention, there's a moment where Trillian kind of finds out that the Vogons destroyed the Earth. So when she gets rescued, she takes it out. First of all, she takes it out on Zaphod because he signed the order, because he signs everybody's
stuff.
A rock star. He signs everybody's stuff. So and one of them was the order to finish off the Earth. And then she turns to Arthur and was like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, I was going to, but he doesn't say that Ford Prefect told him not to. Because
or Zaphod told him not to, didn't he?
Is it Zaphod that told him
Zaphod told, yeah, because he didn't want him to upset him.
In the movie, it's Zaphod, but in the book, I think it's Ford Prefect, if I'm not mistaken.
I wish I had my copy.
I've read it this week. I think so.
Oh, there's another way to get this.
And again, that moment that they both have in that room now, it's like as soon as Arthur, if I was her, as soon as Arthur walked into the room, it's like, dude, I'm showering here. Just give me a moment here. I'll finish and we'll talk. But she doesn't turn him away, kind of telling us that she's not really shy, or she knows what's going on, and it's not that kind of a moment. And Arthur's being pretty respectful,
right?
But he came in to generally say, I'm sorry. I should have told you that before.
Yeah.
And that little moment is not really there in the book, but it kind of serves the purpose of the ending of the movie rather than just the sort of their entire interaction.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then, of course, they're coming to Magrathea, and they're facing the two missiles that the improbability drive. They wanted to get away, but what they did was stay in place and just turn the missiles, because it's so improbable. They turned the missiles into a bowl of petunias and a whale that has a few moments of living, where the most important thing is, what would an animal do at this sort of situation? He's naming his body parts, he's naming the surroundings. So he's naming the wind, it's making the ground. I'll call it a ground. And then he just smacks and splat and dead.
And the petunias, not again.
Yeah, and the Petuna said that is not in the book, but in the
That is in the
movie,
book.
that is in the book.
It is absolutely in the book because it plays an important part in the future books, because there's an entire reason why
Oh,
those petunias say, "Oh, not again."
now I have to reread the book. Damn it.
Because that's one of those tiny little details it's so easy to leave out, because most people who haven't read the book don't understand, or any of the books, don't understand the purpose of it to the rest of the story or the rest of the universe. But the fact that they kept it in is, I mean, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's interesting because um, the guys who were commissioned to do this, Garth Jennings and his producer partner, they never mentioned at any time that this was supposed to be sort of a franchise, because technically Douglas Adams only wrote the one screenplay. He wanted it to be made and then maybe doing the rest of them.
Right.
So I don't think they ever thought this would have any sort of sequel to this, but and it's the one thing I didn't check this week is how much this thing did in the box office. I can
I have
check
no
it in a
idea.
bit. I don't think it did that well,
No, it
because I
really
remember
didn't.
this movie getting really bad reviews. And there's a moment with right at the end of the documentary where the producer was like, "Oh, I'm not looking at any criticism because there's always good and there's always bad, and I cannot read the bad, so I'm not reading the good. So I'm
Yeah.
just not reading any criticism whatsoever." And it was mixed. From what they showed, it was quite mixed in terms of
Oh yeah.
how good it is or how bad it is. To me, I think people were upset because there was stuff that was not in the book, the added things, and people didn't know it was written on purpose that way.
Yeah, I do think that's probably a lot of it. But at the same time, even the books, they take a really specific type of sense of humor and kind of, I would almost have to say, a special type of irreverence to really be able to get into, because you have to be willing to say, well, these are the rules, fuck them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, there are a lot of people in the world who can't deal with that, and the movie mirrors that part of the book very well. So I'm not at all surprised that it didn't. I mean, I'm not at all surprised that people didn't love it as much as I do. I mean, there are so many people who don't actually know of or read the book, let alone understand that, there was also a radio show and a TV show, and each one of these had their own kind of various changes to them, because the guy behind them was a erratic soul himself.
Yeah, it always comes up as um, if you look at Douglas Adams's work, even apart from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's sort of like you would expect that a guy who was writing a book would have sort of a set lore, and he would like go through the lore and just add things along the way. But there's always that established stuff. But
Nope.
because it was sort of a different medium, Douglas Adams said himself, if it's a different medium, it's a sort of a different way of telling a story. So in a movie medium, you can tell a different story, but in keeping in line with the same plot points and just fill in extra things. That's why Huma Kavala is there. That's why the whole sort of more developed love story is there, just because it looks more cinematic. Where in the TV show, Arthur Dent and Trillian had that moment in the party, but then they didn't really interact as much, let alone there was no sort of saving Trillian bit in the TV show, let alone in the skits on the radio, where it was more businesslike because there's no visual aids to kind
Right.
of show you. You have to describe everything. Thanks, Paul. It's 45 to 50 million budget and 100 million box office. I'm not sure if it's worldwide or domestic, but if it's worldwide, it's not a flop technically speaking. So it's
It's
sort
kind of a
of
break
broken
even.
even. Yeah,
Yeah.
broken even, which is generally speaking a flop.
Yeah.
That means that it's a less of a chance that this would get a green lit for some sort of a sequel.
Like I said, I'm not
Worldwide.
at all
Thank you,
surprised.
Paul. Worldwide,
And
that means
yeah. And I mean, it might sound a little presumptuous, but I also think it takes a level of intelligence that maybe the general public doesn't quite hold on to really understand some of the humor. I hate saying that just because it comes off very Rick and Morty. You're not just smart enough to get the joke, but it's
yeah,
still
I
kind of
know.
true too. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. But it also goes to you're looking at two different. I mean, if we look cinematically or literally or literally in literature, you have a various number of writers. You have on one side a writer like Tolkien who has everything scripted out down to the point he wrote a full language. And then you have Douglas Adams who puts stuff on a piece of paper and then tries to make it make sense.
Yeah, kind of. To say the least. By the way, I found the specific point. That's right at the bottom. There is the bust of Douglas Adams.
Yes.
But there, again, I missed it. I had to go back and just get that serious point. It's the fact that Slarty Bartfrost is doing the sort of, oh, look at these different planets that we're building.
Yep.
Oh, do you know Norway? I've designed the coast of Norway. I love designing coasts. And I love the fact that they even have sort of a guys working on his, when they go down to Earth too, they have these guys in these orange suits sort of making the last adjustments of making it sure it looks like it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment that has been cut away. All these guys are like extras, and they actually interviewed a few extras that did like the party and like before Huma Kavala. It's literally just people who are their secondary jobs is doing like extra work. As in film extras,
Right.
and they love dressing up to do extra things. If they're doing like this sort of British, they're all British. I think it was a shot mainly in Pinewood, but other locations, but in the UK. And they interviewed them as like, oh, this is cool, this is fun because it's weird and wacky, and I get to wear different costumes. They even interacted a little bit with like these Hollywood actors because it was just fun, and it was encouraged to be that fun. And most of that stuff was literally not in the movie. They just shot and just picked the stuff that the director liked that kind of fit with the story, but they wanted to have that atmosphere of having some fun inside that sort of, we're working so hard. Some of you are wearing these rubber foam shit all over you for about 8 hours. Let's just have some fun. I think his name is Bill Nye, but I always get him confused with Bill Nye the Science Guy. Their names are written differently. One is Nighy, and Bill Nye is Naney, I think.
Well, Bill Nye the Science Guy, NYE.
NY. Okay.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
way.
The other one's Nighy.
Yes, but it's Bill Nye. Again, for Scrimjaw, he was in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was the squiddy dude. I absolutely love that actor. He's done a few stuff that I love, and there's a movie he did called About Time. He played the dad there. I love that movie. It's a great sort of like a twist on time traveling, but sort of the show with Scott Bakula. Come on, I'm Forgot the show where
Quantum
it goes
Leap?
back. Yeah, Quantum Leap, sort of like Quantum Leap, sort of, but in a movie.
Hmm.
It's great. It's really, really great. Yes, Nye is pronounced Nye. It's the UK sheep. It's the UK. I love the fact that when they go through the earth, they're little on a cart, like a factory cart,
Yeah.
because it's described that way in the book, where it tilts you from one way or the other every time it goes, and they were able to show you that every time they switched and moved and all over the place. You see the actors kind of going with the flow, and it adds to that whole, oh, we're in this factory of making planets. Even though it's kind of weird, they're on a planet, but they're supposed to be inside of the planet, and the planet isn't that big, so they're
Well,
building planets inside the planet.
it's all about how they describe it in the book. You know, you go into this infinite sized room
Yes.
inside the planet. And I think that's one of the few things that it's so hard to convey that visually, where it's easier in writing. So to convey the idea of infinity trapped inside something else.
Yes. It's sort of like Hermione Granger's bag, that it's down to infinity
Mhm.
because she enlarged it with some sort of a spell where you can put in almost anything, including tents and whatever. But you can't really describe how deep it goes. We didn't talk about it, but the group split at one point. Arthur stayed with Marvin, and then he goes into, like, he was afraid to go into this shredder looking portal,
Yeah.
where the other guys just jumped in, and they went to deep thought, and he went to that factory. And to me, that was the second point where I thought, well, maybe they're leaving Marvin there for 2 million years again, but didn't quite work that way. However, the group that went to deep thought kind of got the sort of exposition dump of, yes, we designed the Earth. It's told in a different way in the book, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
In
sure
the
how they discover. I don't remember how they discovered it in the book. Literally too much information.
in the book, it's kind of an exposition dump with the mice. And in the movie, they kind of break it up a little bit, so you get part of it when they go and see deep
Yeah,
thought, and
part
then
of
you
it
get the rest.
in the 40-second moment, and then the latter part with Trillian,
mice,
Zaphod,
yeah.
and for Prefect, and then sort of converge once Slarty, I call him. Slarty shows Arthur the Earth 2, and then he goes into his own house and enter the house, and they're already there.
Mhm.
And they have that moment with the mice. And in the book, it's not quite the same. I don't remember where exactly they meet the mice themselves. It's not on Earth 2. I think it's on the Heart of Gold itself.
Well, they initially meet. I mean, the mice are there the whole time. The
No,
mice are on the Heart of Gold, but
but they kind of divulge the information that, oh, we're controlling you, and we need your brain. It's literally
I
on the last
do
two
believe
chapters of the book.
I don't know if it's on Earth 2, but it's either while they're looking at Earth 2 or while they're on there, because the entire thing is they need Arthur.
Yeah, they need Arthur because the whole point is the Vogons destroyed the Earth, but the Earth was the biggest, best computer because it was integrating life. It was integrating biology with calculations, and the mice were literally taking care of it until it reached the final point, but it was destroyed 5
Right
minutes
before they got the answer, right?
the answer. And they think, well, Arthur is from Earth. He's the only relic. Why didn't think about Trillian? Is not explained in the first book. Neither is it explained in this book, because she's supposed to be like half alien, right?
No, the reason she wouldn't work is because she was not on the planet at the time it exploded. He was literally there until just shortly before it actually exploded. So he still was part of the program. She, however, had been removed and was no longer interacting with the program. So she would not hold the information that they needed.
Okay. Isn't maybe where did I read that Trillian was maybe at one point she was supposed to be like half alien, but she doesn't know it. Maybe it's from the radio show. I'm not sure, because like I said, it had so many iterations, and everybody was changed to something else at one point.
Or
So they
another, yeah.
kept with the main story, roughly speaking, but some things were kind of changed. Arthur in the TV show was supposed to be more assertive. Maybe that's why I thought about Martin Freeman not right for the role. If you can see, it's the teacup. It's the same teacup from the start of the movie, because it's supposed to be his same exact house. The point of Mr. Slarty is the fact that he's so disappointed that Earth 2 has been canceled, because there was no point. Because the mice, finally revealing their program, their plan, we're just going to take your brain and pick it.
Yep.
Because
Literally.
that will probably give us some sort of an answer. And the answer that Arthur kind of gives them was, is it Arthur or Ford Prefect? I don't remember.
I think it was Arthur.
I think it's Arthur that says, well, he gives them the like the first line from a Dylan song. Yeah.
How many roads must a man walk
Man
down?
walk by, which is first line from a Dylan song. And the whole point of the mice, and in the book, it's more pronounced. In here, it's less pronounced. They have that whole spiel of, we already booked like this TV show that goes across the galaxy, and we need to come up with the smart answer to give them, because it's been going on for about it's supposed to be 10 million years for the Earth, but it's also the 7 million of deep thought. And it would be rude to not give a good, question to the answer.
Right. Because, and they would lose a lot of money.
Yeah. And I was like, wait. They were going by this trans-dimensional beings, and all they care about was the money and not looking bad. I was like, this is very human of them. This is very, very human of them. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to stop because we literally have a couple of more scenes, and we'll do our second game of the night. It is called Screen Fighter.
Round 1, fight.
Screen Fighter is where we take two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good, both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other. Two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? I had a perfect couple, and then instead of pressing F11, I pressed one of the other movies. God damn it. So this is The Pair. Chat participation is most welcome.
I'd have to go with Stargate.
Stargate, 1994.
Yeah.
Quiz show. Both movies, same year. Have you seen the quiz show?
If I have, it was probably once, and it was a long ass time ago.
It's the first movie I've seen Ray Fiennes in. Ray Fiennes, John Turturro. It's a really good movie, but nobody mentions it anymore, and it makes it makes 1994 a really good contender for one of the best years in movie history. I'm working on a full-on video about that, or a live stream. I haven't decided yet. It's really, really good. To me, Stargate.
Yeah.
People might not like it. People really didn't like it at first. It's really good, and the fact that we're currently at the moment of watching Stargate ASG-1, me and the wife, we kind of picked that right back up. I'm a huge Stargate, the show, not really Atlantis or Universe. Watched Atlantis through all the way. wasn't really capturing what I liked about SG1. And
Mm.
SG1, even the last 2 seasons where you kind of lose Richard Dean Henderson because he was really fed up with that show.
Yeah.
Stargate, the movie, is really a good starting point for that. Silver Linings Playbook or The Karate Kid?
Karate Kid.
Karate Kid as well. Sheepsidian, Karate Kid as well. Adventureland or Nick of Time?
I've honestly not seen either of these.
George of the Jungle or Edge of Tomorrow?
I really liked George of the Jungle.
I was just gonna say, it's all about mood.
Yeah.
If you're into like watching a movie, I would be watching Edge of Tomorrow. But if you're like, I want to watch the most stupid movie ever, and I don't want to watch The Room again, George of the Jungle would be it.
I unironically love George of the Jungle. I do.
Okay.
But I love the cartoon it was based on and everything.
Yeah,
So,
I love the cartoon that it was based on. I didn't like the live. I don't particularly love live action adaptations. It's another Disney live action adaptation, so it was already set up to be not.
I don't know.
bad.
It was Brendan Fraser and he was hot and
Yeah, he was really buff.
I mean, he
like-
was hot and it was funny and it was goofy. It was good. You have a problem with the fact that Brendan Fraser was hot?
City Island or A Knight's Tale? I haven't
Knight's Tale.
seen City Island,
I haven't either.
but I'll go with Knight's Tale because it's really good.
It's Knight's Tale. There's no.
Okay.
I have
Straight
no
Outta
idea.
Compton or Sin City?
Sin City. I don't know what's Straight Outta Compton. I have never seen it, but Sin City.
You haven't seen it? It's the sort of going through NWO. It's an NWO documentary, but not really. But
NWO
I'll-
or
I'll switch
NWA?
it. NWA, not NWO is
Okay.
wrestling.
Ooh,
Sorry.
now that makes it harder.
Okay. All Dogs Go to Heaven or Sin City. I'm not sure if it's a Disney movie, All Dogs Go to
No,
Heaven.
that's a Don Bluth film.
Yeah, that's right. All Dogs Go to Heaven or Sin City. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's what
go
makes
for
it harder. I'd probably have to go with Sin City, but if I had kids, it'd be All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Me with kids or me without kids, I loved Sin City, but I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I didn't watch it because of Jessica Alba. And I haven't read the source material at the time. It is a great adaptation. I've read the source material. It is sort of shot by shot.
Oh, really?
I think it's Zack Snyder, right? This is
Mhm.
the Snyder one. And I think just because the comic, like the novel was really good, and the fact that it was already storyboarded, Zack Snyder didn't destroy it. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna go with All Dogs Go to Heaven because it really has a lot of heart, and it's really not a Disney movie.
No.
It's really not a Disney movie.
I mean, to this day, I still will sing some songs from All Dogs Go to Heaven in the shower. So,
Not that much. Sleepy Hollow or Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Sleepy Hollow.
Okay, chat, please cast your vote because I'm going with Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Now, technically speaking, I don't particularly like Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I really don't like Sleepy Hollow.
Oh,
I thought it was a really, really bad adaptation.
it's a
I
really
underst-
bad adaptation. You're
I
right.
love the Ichabod Crane story. I love it so much. It is creepy. It is dark, and it has a really bad disservice of Sleepy Hollow. I'm gonna go with Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but I'm outvoted. It is what it is. The Constant Gardener or the Batman 66 movie?
Wow, I don't know if I saw the Batman 66 movie, but I think I would rather watch the Batman 66 movie.
if you ever seen Gary's opening for his like the midday show, I forgot the fucking name. The moment where he carries the bomb, I think that's from the movie.
Oh, you see, I watched a lot of the TV series from '66 or before in the '60s. So I would definitely go with the Batman myself, just because I'm sure it carries that through. I don't remember the Constant Gardener. I just don't.
First of all, thanks, Sheep. It's the Nerdrotic Nooner. Thank you. And Paul, who is I put Paul at a high regard when it comes to like movies. And he said, never seen the full Constant Gardener. The movie is really, really boring. Like
That probably
really
I don't
boring.
remember.
It's
Because I'm sure I've seen it.
it's Ray Fiennes and Rachel Weisz. It's really boring. Batman 66 is just a fun, campy. It's just as campy as the fucking as the TV show.
Yeah.
It's just a continuation, just in movie form.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
what I
have
figured it was.
They have all the gallery of villains, and it's just over the top. Great movie. I don't even remember the plot, but I remember it having such a great time. Zack Snyder again, comic book again, Watchmen, or The Perfect Storm.
I'm not a big fan of either one.
Really?
I'd probably go with The Perfect Storm, though. I don't know.
All right. Cast your votes, ladies and gentlemen. I recently watched The Watchmen. I absolutely love this movie. Zack Snyder didn't ruin it for me. I read the source material. There are some changes. Yes, there is. I know why you don't like it, because there's no big tentacly fucking squid at the end.
You're right.
Which he
That's
was
exactly.
supposed to.
Actually, I had no idea there was supposed to be one.
I think they changed it. I don't remember. There is a reason why they changed it not to be that squid thing. Some sort of budget thing. Some sort of something to do with the budget. I don't remember what it is, but it's that. Otherwise, it's a really good adaptation of it. I thought it was really good. As much as humanly possible, close to the source material. And I didn't like The Perfect Storm. Maybe I don't like disaster movies. Right, last one. Apocalypse Now or Kate and Leopold?
No, you see, this one's one of those. It's going to depend on my mood. If I want to watch a war movie, it's going to be Apocalypse Now. If I want to enjoy some rom-com, it's going to be Kate and Leopold. Because I really like Kate and Leopold. It's actually really well done.
Yeah, I think Kate and Leopold takes a lot of flack.
Oh, yeah.
Because of its sort of Meg Ryan's. I think it was one of her last rom-coms she ever did. I absolutely love Apocalypse Now without Brando. I think Brando should have been not cast in this movie. He was literally the one that bogged down this movie. And the people making this movie did so much drugs. It's unreal. Martin Sheen thought he would never go back to the United States. He would literally stay there as if he was Marlon Brando. The Heart of Darkness is just phenomenal. And I just love it. 2 Johnny Depp movies. You know what? We'll do this.
Okay.
2 Johnny Depp movies. 2 very different Johnny Depp movies.
Very different.
One is a Bruckheimer blockbuster. The other one is a Tim Burton on screen.
It's a cult classic, is what you got to. It's what it is.
So
and I would go with Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands. I love it. Seen it recently. I'm gonna go Jack Sparrow. Character for character. He's a much better Jack Sparrow than he is trying to imitate how quirky and weird Tim Burton is. Because it literally, Edward Scissorhands is, what if Tim Burton was a Frankenstein monster? It literally is it's simple as Frankenstein monster. And yes, I know Price was in this movie, so I get why you like it. I like I said, seen it recently, like a year ago. I was making it into a short. Watched the whole thing just to make sure I've got the beats.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. It's absolutely great movie. Pirates of the Caribbean is really good filmmaking, and it had great characters in it. And they're totally different. They're so different in
See,
terms
if it'd
of
been
one.
the first Pirates of the Caribbean, I'd probably be with
This is the
you. But
first.
by the that looked
That
like
was
the
the
third one. I
first.
thought.
No, it's The Curse of the Black Pearl. That's the actual first
Oh,
one.
that was the first one.
Mhm.
I don't know. I still probably have to go with Scissors Hands.
Okay. I mean, I get it. I get it. I love that movie. I think this was like the first collaboration between Burton and Depp, and then Depp went on a different direction, and I think they got back doing, I think Sleepy Hollow they did together, sort of the next project, if I'm not mistaken. And then they did a fucking
Shit ton of movies. Basically, if it has
together.
Tim Burton's name on it, you're gonna see Johnny Depp in it too.
Yeah, probably. Right. One of the things, well, we kind of skipped the fact that they Deep Thought made like a gun.
The truth gun.
When you shoot somebody, you see the point of view of the other party, and it kind of works to help defeat the Vogons, but not really.
Well, and that's one of those things that definitely varies from the book. That doesn't come in until much later.
What that gun? That
gun.
Deep Thought design? I didn't even think it was in the other books, but
Oh yeah, no, it's a part of the other books.
okay, cool. I love that machine.
Yeah.
I just love that machine. It's like, oh, we need to cut your brain open. However, it only cuts the side of the skull.
Yeah, and not all the way around, just a little bit. Like,
yeah, and there's a hole to extract the brain somehow. I don't know. It's just I love that machine because it's so weird and wacky and just has. It won't do the purpose it was supposed to do because we're looking at
not
it.
Unless it then spins around his head or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird. And he's just sitting there, and suddenly they get away.
Out.
They
How many
squish.
rows must around go down?
Yeah, and sort of like as soon as he says that, it kind of turns on its head. It was like, oh, that's interesting, and they just leave it at that. And when Arthur is freed, the first thing he does is just squishes them. And when they get squished, you can't show like bloody mice, so it's like the two children
Their
that
actual
were
forms,
playing
yeah.
the mice before. And of course, the Vogons are here to claim. To be perfectly honest, they were there to capture Zaphod, but they were shooting all over the place just because reasons.
They're stupid.
Yeah, just because they're stupid. And of course, you probably aware of the sort of love-hate relationship that the UK has or British people have with those caravans. If you've seen Snatch, that only adds to that. If you ever seen Top Gear, the show Top Gear, it kind of like, oh, that's where it comes from. Sort of a love-hate relationship with the caravan, and they completely destroy it.
There was a science show. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they spent so much of their time destroying caravans. It was great. What was it? It was like brain damage or...
Yeah, in Top Gear, they literally went to this quarry and they literally pushed fucking caravans and saw they analyzed their destruction pattern. Oh, that's interesting. Let's push another one again. Let's see. I want to get to this point. I want to show something because, yeah, we'll show this. Here we really see how
That's what
deep and detailed the Vogons are. This is like the cop version, and we kind of skipped the fact that the the Vogon that took Fort Prefect and Arthur Dent said resistance is not futile. Resistance is
Shit, what does he say? Because it's funny too.
it's funny, but the resistance is futile was inspired by that because it every time he says it, there's resistance is useless. Resistance is useless. And sort of the writers of whoever wrote the Borg was inspired by Douglas Adams and those mindless drones saying resistance is useless, but it didn't really fit with the whole a Borg thing. So they turned that into resistance is futile. But it kind of serves the same purpose. And what I wanted to talk about this, and we kind of discussed this, the animatronics and the puppeteering. These people who you see holes, but it's blank. You can't see through that. That's why they did the drilling. After the shoot was over, those rubbery foam things, after about a year and a half, they disintegrate. That foam is not meant to last. Even if you put them in storage, they just disintegrate. There's nothing left from these things. Just a few plastic things, but all the rubber stuff, which is most of the suit, is literally disintegrated away. All the characters, all of the faces, they can't really sell. Like sometimes they sell props for charity and stuff, and they use like ornaments and stuff from movies to make make money, and then there's a secondary market that actually goes on, and they couldn't do this with these things because they literally just evaporated into dust. And that's kind of a shame because it's a big part of what makes the movie, again, not CGI and actually tactile and real. And it's a shame you can't even display it in some sort of like a movie museum or something like that.
Yeah.
Sort of a shame. And right. And the one thing that kind of deviates is the fact that Arthur and Trillian have that little moment where they're kind of whisked away, and they have a little moment where they're looking in each other's eyes, kind of like we need to repopulate the earth kind of a moment. To me, at least, that's sort of a vibe that they're trying to get to. Not really. When they're going,
it kind of looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. And when they're going up to the ship, they're talking about going into this adventure, and Ford kind of says, "I know of a restaurant at the edge of the world, at the edge of the universe." When they're moving one direction, Marvin says, "It's the other edge." I heard a guy that says, "The universe doesn't have an edge." It's like he was so into like tearing this movie apart.
Yeah,
it's like it's not the edge of the universe doesn't have an edge.
End of the universe.
End of the universe. And that's how it's in the book. It's at the end of the universe. And I think in the book they discuss it and then it just ends, right?
I don't think they really discuss it too much because the next book literally is the restaurant at the end of the universe. So.
They like Ford mentions, I know of a restaurant at the end of the universe, and then the book kind of ends.
Yeah,
and the continuation is the restaurant at the edge of the universe.
End.
Anyway, so. That kind of brings us to the end where it starts with the dolphin song and it ends with the dolphin song because it's just so great. They were so proud of that song. They just tacked that onto the end to have that running through.
I'm not going to lie. When I sat down to watch the movie, because I actually I'm not too much of a theater person generally, but I did go to the theater to watch this movie. And when I sat down and they started the movie and the way they started it with, I'm like, oh, hell yes. And then they hit the song and I'm like, oh dear God, hell yes. And from there, it was just because to me, while yes, there are changes, you can tell the changes were made within the confines of the universe as it's supposed to be. And it just, for someone who loved the book, the movie was just great.
To me, like I said, read the book. I think it was 7th grade or 8th grade, something like that. I wasn't really excited for the movie. I didn't go to watch it in the theaters. I think I was already with my wife at the time. So 2005. We actually got married 2005. So I don't know where when it was released. It wasn't a priority to go and watch this. The wife read the book, just the first one. She actually had the copy. So some of the copies there's a lot of arguments about how to write Hitchhiker, because in the American version, it's 2 H's. In the British version, it's just the 1 H. In the original version, is actually Hitch hyphen hikers with an apostrophe S. Sometimes it's without the apostrophe. All different versions. The radio show had a big poster of it. It's written differently there. Again, it's in line with how Douglas Adams kind of treated himself.
I doubt he
And
ever wrote it the same way twice.
she has a copy that I saw in the documentary, which was one of the original looking copies, and it had the hyphen, and it kind of looks like a little bit of psychedelic, kind of Jackson Pollocky looking style of a book. And she liked it, but it wasn't amazing. I think we watched it when it came out on DVD or cable or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we liked the movie, but it wasn't like, oh, this is amazing. And watched it again, not quite amazing. Watching it for this show and going into like reading the book as well, trying to look at different perspective, other people's reviews of the book, other people's reviews of the movie itself. A lot of people don't really like the movie. The people who did reviews that I've seen didn't really like the movie. Didn't quite like the deviations from it. And after watching a few of those, I kind of realized it's because they don't know that Douglas Adams actually wrote those changes in. If they knew he was the one that wrote the changes in, maybe they wouldn't be as harsh with it in terms of movie critique or movie review of it. And maybe they would understand, because to me, rewatching it again, I completely understand where he was coming from. And it, like you said, it was generally within the comedy of what the books look like, especially the added extra books where they maybe not go into more explanation, but they really is that comedy sci-fi element is within that book. Now, one thing I want to bring up, because it's sort of something that I didn't think maybe to mention, not to mention. The entire guide, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, the parts of the guides within it, is a parody of the Encyclopedia Galactica by Isaac Asimov from the Foundation books, which I absolutely love. And I didn't know it was a parody until I did the research for this podcast.
Yep.
Absolutely in line with everything. It's just a humoristic way of looking at an encyclopedia of the entire galaxy. It's just so good and very, very smart of taking somebody who Douglas Adams really venerated a lot of sci-fi writers in general. He loves the sci-fi genre in general. So having that as a homage to Isaac Asimov is just chef's kiss. Just a chef's kiss. All right, that kind of brings us, like I said, to the end. I enjoyed this movie. generally speaking. If you've seen it 20, 30 times, you love this movie, I guess.
I really
Otherwise,
like
you
the
wouldn't.
movie.
Yeah. And I hope you guys liked it too. So next week, like we mentioned, it's going to be Hudson Hawk with Culture Casino coming in and the return of Mr. Oh My Feelings.
That is one of my favorite movies. God, I love that movie.
You can watch it. If you can't watch it live,
I'll
on
watch
the
it
replay.
again. I'll watch it. That's another movie I've probably seen 20, 30 times. I'm not lying.
It's one of my guilty pleasures. It's phenomenal. We'll talk about it next week. I don't want to go into it. I just love it. There's moments of it where I'm still laughing. One of the moments, and I'll mention it today, is where Butterfingers reads Green Eggs and Ham, and he does a very naughty thing with it. And I was never sure if it was in the book or not. I've saved it. Ever since we put it on the list, I've saved it to make the research on if it was in the book or not, because I haven't read the book.
Wait, that's a book?
Green Eggs and Ham?
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were talking about Hudson Hawk being a book.
Dr.
Okay.
Seuss book.
Yes, I know Green Eggs and Ham's a book, but
Right. I haven't read Green Eggs and Ham book.
you
My
haven't read
wife
Green
did.
Eggs and Ham?
She claims that exact line is in the book. And I was like, no way.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Dr. Seuss did not write that. I'm waiting. I've waited a few months. And we'll have the answer. We'll have the answer next week. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, please go and subscribe to Horror Amarada on YouTube. Links are in the description down below. Same goes with Rumble. It will cost you absolutely nothing, but it would mean the world to Amarada. And of course, if you want to have Kick on, it's in the description. It's not in the lower thirds. If you want to interact with this show or with me, X or Twitter, at Meffistoe or at Meffistoe79 on Instagram, email thereelmccoypodcast@gmail.com. Already received a few suggestions. They're all going to be next year. A few good suggestions too, which is good. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will be redirecting you to the Legion of Memers stream, and we'll see you later. Good night. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go. You know what? I forgot to bring a towel. My bad.